your Instagram yesterday. What's going on here? And is your training partner Claire okay? It looks like you've landed one of those power bombs yet again.
Yeah, it was an underhook, kind of hip toast, and yeah, we were training and we were having lots of fun, and then someone just took the picture, and yeah, we were actually laughing. We thought it was pretty funny. She was flying.
Yeah, no, I love to see, you know, on your Instagram, your training, you're always about the business on there. But yeah, that was hilarious to see. Quite the photographer that you have in your training sessions.
Yeah.
So I saw your UFC debut. Obviously, I was super impressed. You know, I've sent you a bunch of compliments, but you know, your strength and conditioning looked phenomenal. You know, I pretty much had the fight a draw. I mean, the two of you went back and forth so much. I couldn't even call any round for anyone. I was very, very impressed. Quite the UFC debut to step up against someone that's, you know, fought in the UFC many times. And so I guess when you started to walk out at the UFC Apex, they started to tell this story. And before the fight even got started, I was immediately hooked. They were talking about how you relocated to Canada from Mexico. And they were talking about that it wasn't of your own sort of will or wishes, but more of you were essentially forced to evacuate the country. They said that and correct me if I get any of this wrong, but they said that your family had sort of been threatened by the cartel member, and that your family actually told you you're going on a vacation and moved everything. Is that all true? And can you tell a little bit more about the story? Because I think that aside from fighting, I mean, that in itself is like worth a movie, you know?
Yeah, everything is truth, you know. It was really hard. So, you know, I was 14 when we moved, 14 and a bit when we moved, and you know, I had my life. Well, you think you have your life there as a teenager, you know, you have your friends, you have your school, you have, you know, it is what you know, right? And yeah, so that happened. Of course, my dad didn't want to tell me and my sisters because we will probably make it very difficult, right? Obviously, I don't want to move to a different country, right?
Yeah.
So he had to tell us something, which that was we're going to Disneyland for vacations, right? I didn't even want to leave Mexico to go to Disneyland for vacations because I don't know, it was something, I was smelling something, you know, but I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, he's gonna take the whole family and put us in a different country. Like, who does that, right? I know. And then so okay, let's go to Disneyland, and we get to the airport, and all the setting is Vancouver, Canada, and then I'm like, excuse me, that's not Disneyland, right? And then he's like, oh, we had to do a stopover, something like that. He say something, or my mom say something. I was like, okay, fine. But when I jump in the plane, I can feel something, you know, the energy is not quite there. And I was crying, you know, I think it was 5-6 hours. I was crying the whole way because I wasn't sure what was happening. We arrived the next day. I'm still crying the whole time. The next day, I'm like, okay, tell me what's happening, right? Clearly, this is not Disneyland, right?
Yep.
And then he's like, well, we're moving here. This is our new place. And then he's like, okay. Then, of course, I cried for so long, like 6 months straight, maybe a year. And then I was refusing to, you know, I was like, as soon as I am 18 or whatever, I'm out of here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's how it happened. And you know, it's been a roller coaster ever since because, you know, it's never easy. And we're still working, you know, we're still, you know, going at it. But I'm here, they're doing great. My sisters are great. So I think that's the best decision that they ever made, for sure.
So when you arrived in Vancouver, did your parents sort of tell you the extent of how they were threatened and why they needed to move, or did they just say that they wanted to move? I mean, 14 is still, relatively young to drop a bomb like that on, a child. Were they honest with you? I mean, it sounds like you had the intuition to say something's not right here.
Yeah. Um, they didn't tell me straight up like that, but they just like, it's not safe, like things happen. And then when I was a bit older, like that's when I kind of knew the full story. But yeah, that was pretty much.
And had you spoken English before you arrived in Vancouver, or did you arrive in Vancouver only knowing Spanish?
No, I didn't speak any English. My parents didn't speak any English. My sister didn't speak any English. We were just we were just communicating with, this and that. I want that, stuff like that.
Yep.
We show up here and we don't have, well, I couldn't work, but my dad didn't have a job. My mom didn't have a job, no English, no school. So my dad has been always really like he's not scared to do things to improve his life, or he has to feed. We're four kids plus my mom, right? So he has to work. He started painting, and he's not a handyman, he's more like a business kind of thing, like selling stuff, buying stuff, but with no English, that's really difficult, right? Yeah. So he started like painting, painting walls, painting houses, stuff like that. And he never done that in Mexico. We were lucky. And then they sent him home the first day of work. At lunchtime, he came back with his little lunchbox, really upset because he couldn't, do like painting,
Yeah,
he never done it.
Not a painter.
Yeah, he's not a painter. And then so that happened, and exactly that day we went for a walk, and we were going to businesses or saying like we clean cars, my dad clean cars, me, him, just trying to explain them that we wanted to clean their car, and he needed a job and blah blah blah. So after walking, because we couldn't drive when we first got here, we were just walking. Finally someone gave him job, and then he started working there. He was just detailing cars. He used to sell cars in Mexico too. And here he started cleaning them, right? And then he was doing well. And then he's like, I want to open up my own little thing. So finally, after a few months, he bought a van. He bought vacuum, chemicals, all of that. And then me and him, I will work with him. We will go to houses and knock the door and be like, me, him, clean your car. You, we will try to explain it. Some people super nice. Yes, clean my car. Some of them, it was like every 2 weeks, some of them were just shut the door on their face, like, what the hell is happening, right? Yep. Some of them spoke Spanish, and he was like, oh my God, you speak Spanish, great, Yeah. So yeah, slowly, a little by a little bit, he started to, be more stable and blah blah blah. Now he's back to selling cars, cleaning cars. He sells everything now. He doesn't speak 100% English, but he can defend himself. He's working for a good company, selling and buying cars and cleaning cars, and he does everything. So he's really good. So it's just a matter of sticking with it and working hard, and that's it.
Well, it sounds like a lot of the qualities that you would need to like start fighting and continue fighting, like, hardworking and just not giving up, right? I mean, it sounds like he's, a good role model and a good entrepreneur. That's amazing. So your whole family remains in Canada?
Yeah, so Anna and Carla and Mariana, Mariana got married, she moved to the States, she has kids, happy woman. Anna and Carla is still here. They wrestle for SFU, one of the universities here, and Anna is representing Canada as a wrestler. Mom and dad working doing well. So yeah.
Well, that's great. It sounds like a relatively happy ending, you know, for a very scary story. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's not over yet, but we still had it, right?
You still have to be a little careful. Yeah.
No, but we still need to work hard for, to get better. Yeah, that's
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And now that you're in the UFC, I mean, I'm sure that the hard work is just beginning in terms of where you want to achieve. I'm sure that you didn't just want to get into the UFC, have a few fights, and say I fought in the UFC. You want to, I would assume, hold the Strawweight Championship at some point. How did you get into MMA, and I guess when did you get into MMA? Was it something that you found in Canada, or were you already doing some training in Mexico?
Yeah, well, since I was a little kid, I always wanted to do WWE. That's what I saw in TV, and so I always had it in me, like I wanted to do something like that, but I didn't know it was such a thing like MMA. And my mom put me into judo when I was a little kid. I did really well. I was actually like traveling all over Mexico, competing and doing so good. After 3 months of training, I was doing great. And of course, teenager hits. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm way too cool for judo, right?
Yep.
So years happens, moved here. Then after a few more years, met my boyfriend, and he says, okay, well, you should go back to judo, do something, you're young, so why waste it, right? So sure enough, went back to judo. After a couple months, I started competing again, hurt my knee. One of my friends says, join judo, jiu-jitsu will be easier on the knees. And then, sure enough, I was doing jiu-jitsu for a little bit. Then I saw in TV MMA, that was Ronda Rousey and Carmouche or Misha Tate, don't remember, one of the first fights, right? I was like, that's what I want to do. That's my thing, right? And sure enough, I told my boyfriend, and he's like, if you want to do that, that's cool and everything, but you had to be in a gym where they do that, and you had to train really hard. Mm-hmm. So I started with my gym right now with Titan. It was really close to my house, and one of his friends used to go there. So I started there. They didn't have a hope in me because I was really bad. It took me 2 years until I took a fight, and 1 year until Ken, my coach, let me spar, because I will turn away. I didn't want to get hit. Like I was just doing this, right? And it took me a few years. But after 2 years, I did my first amateur fight, and from there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think most people don't want to get hit, but you were willing to sort of brave the storm. Does your boyfriend have a background in MMA? Is that why he was so encouraging for MMA, or he wants you to be like more active, or why was he so encouraging?
No, he never fought or did anything like that. But he just wanted me to, if that's what you want to do, you should do it. He would have done the same thing if I say I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to, do whatever. He will always, push me to do things, right? Like support. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that your family and your boyfriend are very proud now. I mean, you have made it to the big stage, UFC. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. I think for a debut, I mean, generally when you debut against someone else who's a little, less experienced, maybe hasn't fought in the UFC as much. Your fight came against Jessica Penne, who is a very decorated, has fought for the championship before. What are your sort of thoughts? I mean, you're about like 10 or 11 days out now since the fight. You've maybe been able to watch the tape and, see what you did well, what you haven't, and how do you think about, how do you reflect upon that fight?
Yeah, of course, I mean, on my way, and I feel like I didn't perform how I should have, I mean, I did a lot of mistakes, and that cost me, maybe, I didn't do enough, I want to say. yeah, I don't know what happened. That's not exactly how I fight. Like I usually, I just did a lot of mistakes. That's it. Like I don't have any other, you know, I I made mistakes.
Well,
Yeah.
it certainly wasn't a bad performance. I mean, the way that you were able to sort of exchange in the clinch with her, lift her up numerous times, take her down, and then were able to, on the feet, I think that, striking was pretty even. I think she threw some more strikes, and I think that you threw some heavier strikes that connected when I was looking at sort of significant strikes versus the regular. Um, so I mean, it was really, it was a split decision, but it was really split in terms of um, the strengths and weaknesses of each of you. Penny seemed like she was able to take her back pretty easily. I don't know if it was, a strategy of you to let her take her back. And then when you slammed her down, it seemed that you were very strategically not engaging in her guard. Um, was that sort of the game plan, was to try to avoid as much jujitsu as you could and keep the fight on the feet? Because it seemed at times that you could have taken her down, but allowed her to stand back up and strike more.
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the mistakes that I made when I slammed her. Like, I should have just go at it, and I mean, I would have been fine. But yeah, like it was mostly striking the game plan, but seemed like it looked like I don't know what I was doing. I was, yeah, I don't know. That was bad. That was bad.
Well, you certainly debuted. I mean, your power, and your striking. I'm just curious with Jessica Penne obviously being so accomplished, and you probably being aware of her before. How difficult was it to step in on short notice against Penne? Obviously, you probably could find a lot of film on her because she's competed, but just to get ready for that skill set that she has, did you find that challenging? I know that you've stepped in on short notice in the past and you're accustomed to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, she haven't fought for quite a few years, so it's difficult to like if you look at the other fights, like it's been so many years that I'm hoping she's better than that. Like I was just hoping like she got way better than that. So it's hard, but mostly I was just focusing on me. Like me getting sharper and better, and trying to do strengthen my things that I'm good at, and just be aware of what she's good at. Which is like the clinch and all of that, which
Right.
clearly I didn't do that good job, I guess. But that happened, and I'm sure that won't happen again because I actually learned a lot from this fight, and yeah, I'm just excited to get back at it as soon as I can, or as soon as they give me a fight.
Yeah, when I hear fighters, a lot of them say that there's just nothing like learning inside the octagon and watching their footage afterward. I mean, you obviously get so much more than that, from training, and that's where you're able to improve. But you're really able to learn, inside the octagon. I'm just curious. I mean, I know that a lot of your fights have come on short notice, but do you think that there would have been a different outcome, or you would have done something differently if you had have had a more traditional full camp, 6 or 8 weeks to prepare for Jessica Penne? Do you think it would have been different, or do you think that it would have been much of the same?
Yeah, of course it will be a lot different. Yeah, but that's how it turned out, and yeah.
Are you excited to be on this stage with UFC where you will have longer training camps now, maybe a little bit more time between some fights, and be able to really scout your opponents? Or are you of the mindset that it doesn't really matter, you're always staying in shape, and that you're ready to go next week if they call you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to stay ready for fights and stuff. I'm always training. It's just a matter of you know getting the fight.
Mm-hmm. Is the weight cut difficult for you? Because I know you've competed at 125 in the past. Now you're competing at strawweight 115. When you get a short notice opportunity, is it hard to cut the weight, or do you stay relatively close to 115?
Oh, it wasn't like, we were really surprised. It wasn't super hard to make the weight this time. You know, for short notice, it was like really, like, it wasn't super easy, but it was like, you know, like manageable. But yeah, I mean, when you have a full camp, it's so easy, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's just easier.
of
Yeah,
course.
the only time that I have full camp was with Vanessa, my fight before Penne, and yeah, it's super easy.
Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine that you're going to get better training camps in the future. But it does seem like a lot of fighters are dropping out last minute, whether it be COVID or whether it be injury. So there's definitely those opportunities. So it's beneficial to the people that are able to step in and cut the weight nice and easily. You've fought in other organizations as a professional. Did you notice any like big differences between the UFC and fighting in those other organizations? And I mean, more just in terms of like how the fight plays out, and obviously, you know, it's more televised and it's more commercialized, and was that different, or was it pretty much the same compared to what you're used to?
It's very different because like you do media on Wednesday, and that was quite a bit. It was really busy. It's super, I mean, the other organizations, they were also professionals, obviously, but like the UFC is just something else, like everything you need, foods are delivered. Yeah, pretty much anything you need, you can just tell them, and you will get it. Yeah, it was different, but the same at the same time. It was just more of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Media day seems like it would be very difficult when a fighter is, cutting weight. I mean, the fact that those two things happen at the same time seems pretty difficult. But again, you say your weight cut was, okay. It wasn't, a horrific weight cut. So how soon could fans realistically see you fight again? Obviously, if you have any injuries or soreness, you need to rest up. But are you looking to get in there like next month, or are you looking to take a couple months off and more, wait until the right matchup comes?
Yeah, pretty much I would like to get back in like 3 or 4 months. Yeah, that's a good time to get back at it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a type of opponent or an opponent in mind that you'd like to fight?
No, like I said it before, I don't pick my opponents, but whoever they give me, whoever makes sense, I just want to climb the ranks, and whoever. There is so many for fun fights in strawweight for me that it's pretty much I want to fight them all.
Yeah, no, it's a really talented division. A lot of different specialists and just overall great fighters. Obviously, this past weekend, fans came back to the UFC. Would you really like your next fight to be in front of fans, or are you okay with the UFC Apex? Like, what would you prefer? Do you think that it would be more exciting to be in front of fans, or easier to concentrate when you're, just able to hear your coaches?
Oh, I'm okay with either one. I mean, I done it with fans, and I also done it with no fans. That doesn't bother me at all. But it's nothing like having all those people there and screaming and doing all of that. That's something else. But wherever they put me, I'm gonna fight.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen recently, not just with strawweights, but in general, there's really an explosion of female fighters from Mexico. A lot of UFC signees have been of Mexican descent, whether they're, were sort of second generation or first generation. Is there anything to that? Do you think that the UFC is like expanding more into the sort of the Mexico scene, or why do you think so many female fighters from Mexico are rising right now?
Well, I think it's a little bit of two things. One, the sport is growing in Mexico, like more like I seen Alexa Grasso and her team, and they have so many women, and it's just like amazing that wasn't there when I was in Mexico, right? So it's really nice to see that women are stepping up and doing whatever they want to do. I want to fight, they're fighting. I want to do this. So it's nice to see that women are stepping up. And also the UFC, I think they see a lot of potential, for Latin, crowds. We are crazy. We are very passionate about things. So I think that they like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I think Dana White say something about the sport is alive right now because of the Latin people.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, we're really passionate. So yeah, I think that's one of those two things.
Yeah, well, it's certainly fun to watch. Fighters come out of more places and see different styles and whatnot. And I think the UFC is definitely trying to expand, and the sport of MMA is growing. And it's definitely not mature like other sports where baseball or basketball or football in the United States are sort of have expanded to where they're going to be. I think the MMA continues to grow. I was even hearing Dana White talk about putting some training facilities together in Africa and other places. So places that have never seen MMA before are going to see it soon. You've competed at 125, you competed at 115. I'm just curious, how fixated are you on strawweight? Would you consider moving up for a 125 fight or two, or eventually moving into that division, or are you really content with where you're at 115?
Well, I started at 125 just because I was younger, and it wasn't really necessary to make the 115 like yet, not to put my body through that in amateur career, right? You always want to save that for later, but we were having the experience and the experience to be fighting. 115 is my weight class for sure. 125, I will take, like, if the UFC needs me to take a 125 fight, or if that was your opening to get in the UFC, I'll take it, something like that. Mm-hmm. For now, being the 115, and once I'm the champ, if I want to have a second belt or something like that, I will be opening for that. Mm-hmm. But right now, 115 is my home.
Okay. And in terms of competing, how much do you mind sharing how much weight you actually have to cut? When you get to fight week, like a week out from the fight, do you have to, like, I've heard of some really extreme weight cuts. I've heard of some people that really don't cut much weight at all, a few pounds. Do you have to cut like 5, 10, 15 pounds?
Yeah. Depends. Like with Vanessa fight, since I had a full camp, I did 5 pounds of water, just water, which that's, perfect. That's what we like. Mm-hmm. But the short notice fight, I did like 7 or 8 pounds, something like that, which is not horrible, terrible, but it's always, hard.
Yeah. I've followed a lot of fighters that have said, just made weight, 30 minutes ago and have put on 11 pounds. And that's crazy to me that, and they're not even done putting back the weight. So at UFC 261, the division that you changed in, that you compete in, changed hands from Weili Zhang to Rose Namajunas. Were you able to watch that fight when it happened? And What was sort of your, your takeaway from that? Obviously, it was, pretty short fight. But what did you see?
I got to train with Rose when I was in Denver before my fight. I got the opportunity to have 3 rounds with her to spar, and I knew she was gonna win. Just by like the way she moves, the way like she's really smart fighter. So I was like, she's gonna win. And when I saw that on Saturday, oh, I pretty much tear up a little bit because I don't know, it's so good, so good to see, and she's a great person, and she deserves it, and yeah, so I was super happy for her.
Yeah, no, she definitely has cemented her legacy, UFC Hall of Fame, and a whole lot more. I didn't see the fight ending that quickly. I thought that Rose might win, but like I thought it would go, similar to the Joanna and Zhang fight, where it's like this all-out war for 5 rounds. I did not see it, stopping before the first round. So yeah, congrats to Rose, and obviously I'm sure that gives you some motivation, seeing a new champion and seeing the level that Rose is at and wanting to hold that belt someday. So aside from fighter questions, there's a couple questions that like I always want to ask like athletes. I look at your Instagram and I see that there is, it's pretty much all MMA, which leads me to ask what outside of MMA, when you're not training, what hobbies do you have? What do you like to do?
I'm not very fan of that question. For one thing, I very much I'm training. If not, I'm home resting, hanging out with my boyfriend, my dog. But like the things that I like to do is be with my dog, with my boyfriend, and with my family. I just love hanging out with them, and whatever, if we go over to their place and have dinner and enjoy quality time, and stuff like that. If we go to a restaurant, not right now, but that's usually of course in summertime we can go to the lake or places like that. But yeah, I'm pretty much it's just training and being home.
And when you don't have a fight coming up, what's your favorite meal? Probably you don't get to enjoy it as much when you're, preparing for a fight, but when you're able to sort of relax, what's your favorite meal?
Like sweets, I love sweets.
That's very funny. I was just speaking with Austin Hubbard, UFC lightweight, and he was saying the exact same thing. He said, like pizza and bakery goods. Like,
Yeah.
that's a common theme amongst fighters, evidently. And then, I know you've traveled. Obviously, lived in Mexico, lived in Canada, spent some time in Denver. If you were to, sort of stop fighting, be able to settle down, and pick a destination that you haven't lived in to go and live in, where would you choose? Anywhere in the world? What would be your? Where would you drop that pin?
Oh, so many great places. I wanna have to go with in a beach place, nice and calm. I have to go with that just because I love my culture, and we have so many great places. And I haven't even traveled inside Mexico that much. So I think I should, travel around my own country and get to know more places before I get to go somewhere else. For sure.
Yeah. Well, there's no shortage of nice beaches in Mexico, right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, I am very excited for your next fight. I hope that you have an announcement soon that you're going to be competing this summer. And I thank you so much for coming on and giving us an interview.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks, Loopy.